Welcome back, folks, to the third season of episodes of the ILBATDs podcast. It's good to be with you. We're joined, as always, by the co-host, Mr. Champion himself. Good to see you, sir. And the commish. Welcome back to the pod.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's great to be back. This is the fourth year that we've been doing this, so we could say we're seasoned vets at this point. Um, but it's always fun to start a new season and definitely get back on the pod.
Yeah, and congrats on leading us through a draft in time. That's a big accomplishment for this league. So,
I'll tell you
congrats
what,
to you.
it ain't easy. I know winning fantasy might be easy for some of us, but managing a draft and keeping everybody, not everyone's going to be happy, but keeping everyone not terribly upset seems like a win, even though during it doesn't feel like I'm winning or doing the right thing. But coming out the end of it, I think the goal is always to have everyone pick every single player. That is the ultimate goal. And it seems as if this is the only way to get that accomplished because while we didn't necessarily try to nail down one specific time, I really don't think we would have been able to get everyone at one time. So having 24 hours, which changed to 12 hours, which changed to 2 hours, seems to be the only way to keep everyone from one being picking all their players and being happy with their team, but also two, just getting everyone to not be livid. Maybe not everyone's happy, but at least you get your team that you want, and that's my ultimate goal. I know we say this every year. I want to discuss and actually nail down a time to get everyone in a Zoom or whatever to discuss how to go forward with this. But for the time being, this seems to be the only way to accomplish everyone picking every player. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, let me share my screen here and pull up the draft board, and we can share other feelings overall on the draft and how it played out. Um, One big takeaway I had was I'm always curious, especially at the top of the draft, to see how it shakes out between running backs and wide receivers. And I feel like over the last few years, we've been trending more towards wide receivers going early. But even still, 12 of the first 24 picks this year were running backs. 5 in the first round, 7 in the second round. And then things quieted down a bit. But, there's still like value in, picking running backs early. Only 2 people went wide receiver, Trevor and Jason with their first 2 picks. So I thought that was interesting that even though it feels like the pendulum has shifted towards wide receivers, you still see like a lot of the top tier running backs going pretty early in the draft.
Yeah, that's something we called out after the draft last year. It was like it kind of felt like a tipping point for high value receivers going in the first round. I feel like it's kind of swung back to the mean a little bit this year. Um, I still think, I mean, I was surprised at how many folks went, two hero RB strategy with 2 running backs in the first round, Rob, Colin, Josh, and myself. Um, so I don't know. I like seeing that. I think I'm a pretty big fantasy football traditionalist. It's hard for me to go through zero RB in the first 2 rounds. So that felt like more of a comfortable spot for me. But yeah, I'm glad to see that there are still some bell cows in this league.
Yeah, I would say that that tier one of RBs, maybe 1A and 1B, are have separated themselves from the second tier. I mean, you look at the first 2 rounds, all those guys are arguably 1A, 1B. And then the first running back in round three is Kenneth Walker. He's a tier two running back, in my opinion. So I would say that's what's contributing to maybe RB heavy in those first 2 rounds is because you look at every single one of those running backs in those first 2 rounds, and they are 1A, 1B tier running backs, in my opinion. Um, I went double RB because I've always been a Saquon fan. I think he's one of the best athletes in the NFL. Just pure athleticism there at running back. And then I think Josh Jacobs is in a good situation, and he's proven that he can be a top 10 guy. So that's my justification for going RB there. And we know about the receivers because there's depth there. So I went 4 receivers right off the jump, right after those 2 first running backs, because I know that you can find some depth there at wide receiver.
Yeah. Let's what were your favorite picks, or what did you think were the best value picks from the draft this year? I can lead off with a couple that I highlighted as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought Rob getting Pacheco at the end of the second round was good value, especially since it seems like Edwards-Helaire is going to be out for a little bit. I mean, I think that especially in the early going, if Pacheco can stay healthy himself, that's going to be a really good value pick. Was surprised to see him slide all the way to the end of the second round. I also thought Terry McLaurin picked by Josh in the 6th round. He's like the clear wide receiver 1 right now in Washington, and I was surprised that he was still available there. He was a guy that I had my eye on in the 6th round if he made it to me a few picks later. I thought that was a really good value pick
with the stack too. With the stack,
yep, stacked it on the next round with Jaden as well. So I thought those were two really good value picks.
That's a fair assessment. I have 2 right off the bat that I thought of when you initially asked the question, posed the question. And it's funny because they're both in round 15 and they're both right before me. So that might give some bias there. But the Jason with Xavier Legette and you, Nick, with Tyler Conklin, that was my cue. If Legette was there, I'm getting him. If Conklin was there, I was going there as well. So they were stolen right in front of me. So I would say just by default, I would say that's good value because Legette's one of these pure athletes. He's going to be essentially the number 1 there. I mean, you could argue Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen, but I think he'll be the clear like standout receiver there. They're going to be passing a lot. And then Conklin, he's actually going to have the quarterback he was supposed to have last year, and he's an athlete. So just with those 2, I would have liked to have had them there, but they went right in front of me, and I still went with a rookie for the Jets with Aaron Rodgers thrown to him. So we'll see what he can do. But I think those were good value picks just because, I wanted them, but I think they have really good situations to have, fantastic years, standout years.
I like Willie grabbing Zamir White in the 7th. I think he's the clear number 1 there. I think they signed somebody else in the offseason, but I think he's getting the most of the first team reps in that offense. That's probably going to rely on a lot of short passes to him out of the backfield with Minshew and or Aiden O'Connell. I like that pick a lot, especially as RB4. And then I also really like Trevor grabbing Jared Goff in the 11th round. Jared Goff was the number 7 quarterback overall last year. I think that offense gets better this year. I think he gets more comfortable in that system. He's a quarterback 2 after Lamar. I have a couple question marks with Trevor's roster, but I think he really knocked out quarterbacks and his wide receiver situation. And grabbing Goff as a QB2 in the 11th was a pretty solid scoop.
Yeah, those are good calls as well. How about any head scratching picks? Anything you weren't sure whether that was a good value?
I was initially going to say Pacheco. I'm not too high on him. He might be an aggressive runner and he's got a crazy run style, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's that good. I think he finished either 15 or 16 running back last year, and he was the like you said, 12th running back off the board. So I guess that's not much of a jump or a reach. But I was just a bit surprised to see that name in the second round, even though granted it is the end of the second round. I didn't necessarily love that, but I'm not going to say it was like a head scratching like totally a bust of a pick. I was just a bit more surprised when it happened. Um, but let me keep looking. I know Nick, you're loaded up with a few.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll go to Justin Tucker in the 10th round. It was 4 rounds before any other kicker got taken. I always think that you're better off waiting on kickers and defense and stashing more, value at other positions, especially since the only 2 running backs he had at that point were Mixon and Gus Edwards. He could have gotten a guy like Ezekiel Elliott, Herbert Charbonnet, Jaleel McLaughlin, all on the board at that point. A lot of guys that I think could have helped them um, fill out that running back room. I'll also go back to Trevor's roster. Kincaid in the 5th. I think I probably would have gone with a running back there, especially since he didn't have any running backs yet. I do think he got some really good guys. I think Brian Robinson, probably another guy that I would put in my like good value category, getting him in the 10th round. But just looking at his roster, I feel like I probably would have taken a running back in the 5th round before addressing the tight end position.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the very next pick, David Montgomery, he might not be an RB1 technically, but we know Jahmyr Gibbs can get injured. I think he might even have a little hammy right now, so he's the RB1 week 1. So that's a fair assessment saying, addressing a tight end before you have a power running back for a good running team. I'd say, yeah, that would be a head scratcher in my opinion as well.
It's an interesting pick because I think Kincaid's going to get a lot of looks in this offense this year, and I think Josh Allen's not slowing down. I think he's going to be kind of like the wide receiver one. I think Keon Coleman's going to, come out of there as probably the X, but I think Kincaid's going to get a lot of looks. But I agree. This is kind of one of those, like, it's not that the pick is a good pick, but the strategy up until this point, or at least after this point, is kind of hard to swallow. I mean, I think Trevor and Jason from like rounds 6 until like rounds 11, it's just tough if you don't have any running backs in your roster by that point. And Jason is kind of the more extreme version. I mean, he only has 3 on his roster, I think, or he has Kamani Vidal. He got in the 19th. I'm gonna go with kind of the head scratching strategy with Jason in general, of only having 3 running backs. Really, up until that point, Kamani Vidal is going to be a flyer. I think. I guess he has 2 on the Chargers, and I don't even think either of them are actually the starter. But I thought it was interesting that Caleb Williams went before Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, and then Jordan Love, who just got the largest contract in NFL history. I thought that was an interesting strategy. I get the hype. I guess this is not a keeper league, but I guess if you want to kind of get ahead of the hype, he's going to have a lot of weapons, but he's still a rookie. He's still on a team that played really poorly last year. I don't know how much help he's going to get on the offensive line. I just thought that was a little bit interesting pick that Caleb went before, 3 guys that probably could finish as top 7 quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Love, I thought I was stealing Jordan Love there in the 7th. I think he was a top 5 quarterback last year. There's no reason why he's the, I don't know, 8th or 9th or 10th quarterback off the board there. And same point goes to Travis Etienne. He was a 3rd running back, and he was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th running back off the board. So that was, I mean, I'm taking Travis Etienne if he falls 2 more picks. So, just based on what they did last year going into this year, I think Jordan Love was a steal, and I think Etienne was a steal in the 2nd round. I know we're on head scratchers, but I mean, they're just we're looking at the board now. I'm finding things. I'll
also throw out. I know I said something in the group chat when you picked Saquon. I wasn't sure about the value of Saquon at the 7th overall. I felt like you maybe could have gotten him with your next pick. Maybe not. He might have been gone by then. But I know you're a believer, and he certainly could prove me wrong. This could be one that we look back on, and he has, a top 3 or 4 RB season, and it looks like a great pick at the end of the year. But I probably would have gone with Breece Hall at that spot if you wanted a running back. So we'll see. That's one I'll have my eye on all season to see how Saquon does.
Yeah, that's a more believe in the guy I love Saquon. I think he is by far one of the most talented players in the NFL. I like the system as well. They're a good run heavy team. And you look at the next couple guys, I just compared them to their situations. Justin Jefferson, there is no chance in hell he does what he's been doing with the quarterback situation in Minnesota there. That's just the easy. I didn't even really consider him with my seventh pick because he's the name is there, but the situation isn't. I'm going to believe in Saquon over Breece Hall. I know Breece Hall went off last year, but I also consider the bye week. An early bye week. I get rid of the week where I don't have him right away. Maybe it hurts me in week 5, but I'd rather it hurt me in week 5 than week 12, 13, 14, and beyond. And so that's why it was a bit of a reach. I mean, he was like 5 or 6 or 7 picks down. All these guys after him were, drafted higher than Saquon, but it's a believe in my guy situation, and I went with it, and I felt good about it, and I still do. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, one of the ones that we were talking about this weekend, or at least I was when it first happened, was in that same line of running backs right at the turn, getting Achan in at the top of the second. I'm not personally a huge fan of that pick. I mean, fantasy's all about getting your guys, right? Getting the guys that you want in your team. And I can't take a dig at that. I don't personally love the pick because, he had a couple great weeks last year. Got dropped a 40-point week. I think a 50-point week too. But I just don't know about the consistency. Like I think you're going to get more consistent weeks out of somebody like Josh Jacobs or somebody like ETN than you will out of HN out of your RB1. So
mhm.
you know, it's a head scratcher maybe for me, but not for other managers because I'd probably made some of those same picks later on with somebody like a Neighbors or Kyle Pitts, who might not be as high on him as I am, or both of those guys as I am. So that was an interesting pick. I thought at first maybe a head scratcher in air quotes.
That reminds me of some of the talk that went on this weekend, with Jerome Ford specifically. Like, I know it's an 8th round pick, but I still think maybe not necessarily a reach, but I was just confused by that because he wasn't getting drafted very highly. Definitely not in the 8th round. If you look at his ADP, I think it was a little bit lower than that. That's a pretty packed running back room. I know Chubb's coming off an injury, but I didn't understand the hype. There seems to be a lot of people who were like really high on Jerome Ford, and I just don't necessarily get it. And then he was taken there, and it was a bit of a head scratcher for me, just because that running back room is packed. I know they got Deontay Foreman, they got obviously Jerome Ford, Nick Chubb, they got Pierre Strong, who's a former Patriots guy. Like there's a lot of mouths to feed in that running back room, and maybe he wins the job, maybe he is that guy, but I was a little bit surprised at why there was so much talk around him specifically.
Yeah,
See, based on what I'm looking at, I'm not seeing anything, outstanding here. But he is an 8th round running back, so maybe I'm just being a little nitpicky.
Yeah. I think it's probably, he's a second-year player now. He had a couple good weeks last year. He's definitely going to be RB1 for at least the first 4 weeks. If you think Nick Chubb is washed up, maybe he's the RB1 for the rest of the season. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see play out for sure. Who's the team that you think has the lowest ceiling? In other words, what team could you like not see contending for a championship?
This one's tough. I mean, just based on the 3/4 running back strategy, which is what Willie employed, I think, a year ago. He was actually RB0. Jason's at least at RB3. One of those guys gets hurt, Mixon gets hurt, and you got RB2s,
right.
So that's going to be tough to fill out a roster week in when you don't even have a solid RB1. I think he might have a tough year making lineups. I mean, his wide receiver 3 and 4 are also just rookies. So I mean, I could see him having a tough time. But Jason always surprises us, so I don't want to necessarily throw him any bad karma juju his way because I know he's capable of running a tight ship down there.
Yeah, same sort of concept with Trevor's team, right? I mean, Ramondre's the clear guy in New England. Singletary, I think he's number one in New York, but I don't really love that offense. Brian Robinson's behind Eckler. Jordan Mason's, I think he's the guy behind McCaffrey, but not totally sure. Um, this really came back to bite Willie in the butt last year during the playoffs, right? Especially when he had I think he had like two Buffalo Bills running backs on his roster. And they had a bye in week 14, and you're kind of scrambling for an RB2 in the playoffs. That's not a great spot, right? So um, I think I'm going back to strategy. I don't love the strategy that Trevor and Jason employed. They have some guys on their team on the outside, right? Like I think they both have great receiving cores, but the running backs, the injury that gets the highest percentage of injuries, I would say, it's going to be tough. You gotta play the waiver wire well or make some trades, but I just don't think you set yourself for success when you have that strategy employed.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jason as well. I think the running backs is a big concern for me. Um, I think there's a lot of question marks. Like I could see this working out well, but Williams is a rookie. We don't know really what he's gonna look like if he's gonna produce. DJ Moore is working with that rookie quarterback. You don't know if he's going to be, a favorite target of Williams or not. Chase seems to be battling an injury right now. It doesn't seem that serious, but that's already tough when you're kind of coming into the season. Your first round pick isn't healthy. Keon Coleman, a rookie, and is he wide receiver one? What kind of looks is he going to get? Is he going to draw the toughest cornerback assignment? So I think he just has the most question marks. I actually really love Brock Purdy as a backup quarterback. I mean, he can be like a QB1. So maybe there's a deal to be made if someone loses their quarterback early in the season to shore up some of these question marks at other positions by trading Purdy. For example, if Mahomes went down, I would be interested in Purdy. To help my quarterback room. But I think right now it's hard for me to see how this plays out in a way where all of this hits and Jason's competitive in the playoffs.
Yeah,
How
a
about
quick shot. I
yeah,
think Willie's team, um, he went the opposite strategy of last year. He went a little RB heavy,
Mhm.
but then it's at the expense of his wide receivers. Beyond CeeDee Lamb, his wide receiver 2 is a rookie. Christian Watson's hit or miss. Khalil Shakir is barely a home run or bust because I don't know if he's hitting that many home runs. And then you got to scroll down to see Gabe Davis, who's also a home run or bust kind of guy. So Willie's team might seem strong because he's got a lot that those 4 running backs right there hitting you in the face, and Josh Allen, a good quarterback that'll get you 25, 30 a game, and CD, the best receiver in the league last year. But I'm not confident with what he's got going on the rest of his team. Um, Even though you can clearly see he's trying different things, which you gotta applaud him for, respect the game there. Um, but I'm not confident in Willie's full roster now that I'm really taking a look at it.
how about the flip side of this? What's its lowest floor, or what team do you think there's like no way that they miss the playoffs? I'll go first. I'll throw Josh out there. I think he had a really strong draft. I really like the balance. I think a lot of it's going to come down to Jaden Daniels and how he performs. But by waiting until the 7th round to get a quarterback, I think he got a lot of quality and took value when it was available. I talked about Brees Hall. I mean, he could have gone as high as like the 5th overall pick. ETN I had on my team last year, and he's just a stud. I love him. I always think he's undervalued. Devontae, he is getting older, but seems to continue to produce in fantasy, despite the fact that I never think he's going to. If Cup can stay healthy, I mean, he's going to be a monster as he always is in terms of receptions. I think there's just a lot of good picks. You know, we talked about Ford. He can be a polarizing pick, but I think it's a good one. I like kind of the rookie running backs he has on his bench as well, who would be ready to step in if the starter goes down. I think Marvin Mims could be in line for a big role. Bryce Young could take a second year, step forward as his backup QB. I think Josh has a really strong roster top to bottom. So I'd be surprised if somehow Josh missed the playoffs. I think he has the highest floor.
I think I'd be surprised if he missed the playoff as well. His kind of MO is making the playoffs, making a strong case for the best team, and then the playoffs just not really making it happen. And when you look at his top two picks, they have week 12 buys. So that's going to hurt his seeding chances. Then you look two more picks down, his tight end 1, receiver 3, and QB 1 have a playoff bye. So that MO might continue this year when you're looking at Josh's team, and 3 of his strongest players won't even be there for week 2 of round 1. Maybe that's a hint to make something happen right away, or maybe he just rides it out and continues his MO, which is strong regular season. And what happened to Josh and the
Get
deep
booted in round 1.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I don't know if we can call him deep bench Josh anymore. We'll have to see what his bench is capable of this year. But the fact that he has 3 guys with week 14 buys will just is scary for me. I wouldn't want that on my team. I specifically avoided week 14 buys as best I could.
Yeah.
I literally have one guy, Stephon Diggs, kind of had to take him there, and then an RB2 in New England, whatever. But yeah, that's a good. I just wanted to make that point for Josh's team, even though I do feel confident in his team. He is very strong right off the gate, but come week 14, what is he going to be able to maneuver?
Yeah, I agree. We talked about this over the weekend too. There's a lot of teams that have week 14 bye this year. Baltimore, Indy, Washington, Denver, New England.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like there's a lot more relevant teams that have week 14 buys. I wasn't able to escape it, right? I got Jonathan Taylor, Zay Flowers, Benson at my backup tight end, right? Javonte Williams, my RB3. So yeah, it's going to be hard. I'm going to have to either make some moves or just try like hell to get a buy in that first round. That's really the only way to avoid that. But to answer the original question, we were just kind of talking about Willie's team. I actually kind of, if you could, I think there's a couple of X factors here. Like if we can find out what happens in Buffalo and Green Bay from a wide receiver perspective, I don't really know if there's a true number 1 guy there in either team. There's a couple of guys who are kind of jostling for that number 1 spot. If it turns out to be Christian Watson this year in Green Bay with Jordan Love and Khalil Shakir in Buffalo, I mean, that could be huge. And I'm not too concerned about Marvin Harrison being a rookie guy. I think he's a generational talent at receiver. I think Kyler's going to find ways to get him the ball. I think Kyler's going to have a great year this year compared to years past. So, I mean, he's got a stable running backs. Biggest question mark for me is probably the Aaron Jones pick. I'm not sure how healthy he's going to stay. If he can stay healthy and he can be the receiving back out of the backfield in that offense, I mean, I like the team a lot. He's got the Ravens, Tua as his backup. I love that. He's got a good kicker in Butker, and he's got a couple of home run guys. So I think if we can figure out the X factor for those 2 offenses, I think Willie's team could make a run to the playoffs. And I think honestly, Johnny 3 and Rob as well. I think the 3 worst teams that finished this year have a good chance of making the playoffs this year, which I think happens. There's some turnover every year in this league from who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. But I think I like all 3 of those teams. Liking the most is Willie's team out of the 3.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. The kind of next question we were going to touch on is if you had to trade your roster for someone else's roster, who would you want to switch with? and I was going back and forth between Willie and Rob myself. I there's like one or two picks where I'm like, oh, I don't love that selection, but overall, I like the value that they both got. I think I would probably go with one of those two. I think I lean a little bit more towards Willie though to answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm looking at it, I'm not sure any team really stands out to me. Um, I think that's a testament to the people drafting in this league. I think we have a balanced, well, knowledgeable league here. So I like that as a commissioner's perspective. But to answer the question, if I were to trade with one team, I think I'm going Josh's team. I like that top four, then a great tight end, another solid receiver, even though it's a rookie QB. Um, I just think the strength of his team is stronger than most others that I'm kind of assessing here. But again, it's hard to differentiate one team from the next. I think every team looks, really strong and really balanced.
Yeah.
Going into this year.
I'm probably gonna make a hot take here. I'm gonna go with Eric's team. I think that if you look at it top to bottom, I mean, he's got a lot of big names. I like Olave as wide receiver 2. I think Jaden Reed in Green Bay, again, similar to what I said about Willie, has the opportunity to be the number one guy there. I think that there were weeks last year where people kind of thought that he might be the number one guy, in the slot there in Green Bay. Lad McConkey certainly in the running for number one guy in Los Angeles. I've heard he has a great camp. I love the value pick of Tyler Lockett in the 12th round. He's clearly the number 2 guy, I think, in Seattle. JSN is there, but I think that they occupy, they play 2 different styles of the game. Um, I love that he got Tajay Spears, who's I think the number 1 guy in Tennessee. Well, no, I guess he's behind yeah, he's behind him. But I like that pick, like Trey Benson in Arizona too. And of course CJ Stroud and Laporta, like your 2 kind of young studs to kind of anchor the offense. I like the team. His team's always pretty scary. It's kind of hard to say because we all just finished drafting and we all kind of got our guys, so it's hard to say like whose team we like more than our own. But Eric's historically been, like Josh, a scary regular season team, and I like the way he drafted this year.
Yeah, I mean,
Should we do it? Go ahead.
Shout out Nick's team real quick. I mean, you look all the way down to round 10, everybody there is in a great situation, got a lot of talent there. Patrick Mahomes is QB1. And just I'm a little bit more impressed than I initially thought there. Nick, I think you have a very, very well balanced team there. I'm a little nervous now.
Well, thank you, sir. That fortunately for you, you avoid me in week 1 at least. Josh has the pleasure of dancing with me this week. And maybe we'll quickly do a college game day style. Who's your pick in each matchup this week? We can go down the line on the various matchups. According to Sleeper, I'm the favorite. I don't know. Yeah, he did switch out his tight end, so that includes that. I think I'm going to favor myself. I'm going to take myself in week 1. I worry about Derrick Henry holding up for the entire season. I think that might be the biggest question mark on my team. But week 1, he's healthy. Maybe he can get some short yardage touchdowns and really pad his stats. I'll favor myself over Josh in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely gonna win the quarterback battle. Well, I'm confident that Chiefs Ravens tomorrow night to start the season could be a bit of a fireworks show. Maybe not. Who knows? But at least, you're going to win that quarterback battle. Everything's pretty even until you get to the flex spots. And I have much more confidence in your flex spots than I do his. Even your defense will probably run away with that, considering you're playing Carolina and his defense is playing Green Bay. So if you really get down to the nitty gritty there, you're winning a majority of those matchups, and that tends to win you games.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the first thing I look at is the quarterback battle there. It's his first ever start. I don't know the all-time record for rookie quarterbacks in week one, but I can probably not that great. Tampa Bay was a playoff team last year, right? Very good defense, guys who fly around the ball. I think that's going to be the X factor there. I think I agree with Colin. I think this is going to be a high-scoring first game of the season, even though it wasn't really last year with the Chiefs and the Lions. But I think Mahomes comes out slinging. I think he throws a deep shot to Xavier Worthy, and it's going to be, it's just like fireworks to get the game going. I like Nick's team here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
How
also
about
I'm also a verified Josh hater too, so that's probably why.
who do you guys have in this one between Johnny 3 and Troy? Sleeper says Johnny, slight favorite.
I think this can come down to Achan if he's going to have his 40-pointer or if he's going to get hurt. I think that could be a real difference maker there. I mean, I think the Dolphins are just a big question mark altogether. Will they continue to ascend the ranks of the NFL, or will they plateau at some point? And I think that starts with their running game and obviously Tua. But if they can get Achan running and maybe some of those rookie running backs, I know Mostert's still there. I think that can be a difference maker in this game. And then on the other side, he's got Tyreek Hill. He's going to score at least 100 yards and or a touchdown for Johnny's team. Troy going 5 receiver deep. That's an interesting strategy right out the gate, but maybe that's playing to his strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Troy's got Cowboys defense, and I'm pretty sure they outscored every defense by quite a hefty margin last year, because of all those pick sixes from one dude. So I'll go Troy here. I'll take a quick Troy pick here.
I think I'm gonna go Johnny here. I'm taking a look at the wide receiver combo. I mean, granted, he has Garrett Wilson in the flex, which I wasn't really expecting, but I guess it's a Monday night game. It's a scheduling thing, but I just look at the 5 receivers that Johnny has and the 5 receivers that Troy has. I personally am a little higher on Tank Dell this year than I think some people are. I think he had great chemistry, CJ Stroud, last year when he was healthy. I also think that with this enhanced offense in Tennessee, that's why I drafted Will Levis as Mr. Irrelevant, even though I had 2 quarterbacks on the team already, is that offensive scheme is going to change pretty drastically without Derrick Henry there. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. I like DeAndre Hopkins. I think he has some good chemistry with Levis last year, a couple long bomb touchdowns last year that he took advantage of. Of course, I love Tyreek Hill. I think if Johnny's receivers as a whole can win the battle against Troy's wide receiver 1, 2, and 3, granted that means that Xavier Worthy and Garrett Wilson don't have insane games. I think Johnny can pull this off.
I'm gonna go Troy. I think Burrow will outscore Hurts. Sleeper has the projections the other way, but I don't think Hurts is gonna have a great night against Green Bay's defense, and I think Burrow, coming off the injury, is gonna want to show out. And he's playing New England, so I think that's an opportunity to probably put up some points. I think Cortland Sutton is going to have a great year. That was maybe the pick that made me the most mad that I didn't get Sutton. I really wanted him, and Troy stole him from me a few picks before I was going to take him. So I think he's going to score more than 8 points. So I think that projection is a little low. And I don't know. I mean, it's always tough. I know New England's offense does not look very enticing, but the defense here is Johnny's projected to win that battle by 5 points. You never really know whether that's going to play out. An interception here or there or a long touchdown given up can really change that. Defense can be just so variable. So I think I'm going to go Troy, but this could be an interesting one. I expect it to be an exciting matchup.
I'd like to point out that Troy has Achan and Johnny has Mostert. So whoever is the RB1 that game will win the matchup likely, unless there's a big home run touchdown here. But I'd also like to bring it back to Jalen Hurts. Did they change a rule for the QB sneak this year? Are we going to have some sort of situation where that's changed, or nothing's changed with the the tush push and all that crap.
I don't think they changed the rule, but Jason Kelsey did retire, so that he will be working with a new center at least on those plays.
Okay, I think yeah, that'll definitely affect it. I thought there was at least talk of a rule change last year. I wasn't sure if it came to fruition or not.
There was talk. I don't remember them changing the rule. I could be mistaken, but I don't think they did.
Well, they changed the kickoff rule, and I only found out within the past few days. So that surprised me. So I wasn't sure if there was any more rule changes that slipped the radar.
Yeah. How about this matchup between Willie and Jason? This one of the 51-49 matchups according to Sleeper this week. Looks like it's going to be close. You got Caleb Williams making his debut for Jason here. How do we feel about this matchup?
Yeah, another rookie quarterback versus arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. We obviously know who's going to win that matchup. Hut Tua is an easy win in the QB battle. Remember, Willie has the 4 running back strong, and he's starting all 4 of them. So they kind of need touchdowns, or else the receivers on the other side will outscore them just based on yardage and grabs. I think this could be a close one. 2 of the best kickers going against each other. The Chiefs' defense against Baltimore with Derrick Henry. I think I'm leaning towards, believe it or not, I think I'm leaning towards Jason, even with the rookie QB, running back, arguably weaker. So I mean, definitely weaker, but you don't know what Gus Edwards is going to be over there in Chargerville. I'm going to lean towards Jason's, and I couldn't put my finger on exactly why. I think I just like the strength of his team.
Yeah, I like Seattle playing Denver, Jason's defense week 1. And I don't really love the Chiefs playing Baltimore. They have a billion ways to score the ball on that team. I'm probably going to go Jason as well. This is similar to the last game we went through with Troy and Johnny. This was a week 12 elimination game for both of these teams, I think, last year. Jason unfortunately didn't make the playoffs. Willie does, similar with Troy and Johnny. So this is kind of like a revenge game for all 4 of those teams. I think this time the rules are going to reverse. I think Johnny beats Troy, and I think Jason beats Willie in week 1.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jason as well. I think this might be the lowest scoring matchup, the defensive struggle potentially here in the fantasy world. Maybe 110 points pulls out the win for one of these teams. I think Willie might outscore him, but could potentially get negative points from his defense. I do not love the matchup against Baltimore, as we've talked about. So yeah, I'll go Jason in a narrow one over Willie here. All right, Cam, how about you in the birthday bowl against Trevor for bragging rights? Another 51-49 matchup according to the experts here at Sleeper.
This is one of my favorite games that I play all year. Birthday Bowl. I think I get Trevor twice. I get him in week 1. I think I get him in week 10. And then last year I got him in the playoffs as well. I think I'm winning the series 2-1 right now, but he definitely kicked my tail in week 1. I think he dropped like 150 on me in the first week last year. I'm gonna take myself. This is also kind of a nod to the Florida Miami game that happened this past weekend that we will not be talking about at all. But there's definitely a couple people that I really want to see. I think I took some chances on my team this year in a couple spots. The biggest one being Malik Neighbors is my wide receiver 2 in this offense. I like that he's kind of the main guy in New York. I like that Daniel Jones is able to throw the ball, and he still has 1 more year on this team. I think they're going to be playing from behind a lot. So I like that he's going to get some volume. I also took a chance with Javonte Williams and Kyle Pitts. I think that they have the capabilities to kind of bounce back. I know there's a lot of people in that Denver backfield, but I like the guys. I feel like I went out and got my guys. I got the kicker from the UFL who made like 3 60-yarders for the Birmingham Stallions or Michigan Panthers or whoever it was. And yeah, so I mean, he's got a lot of depth at receiver. AJ, Puka, Mike Evans, Kincaid, Deontay Johnson's going to be a stud, I think, in Carolina this year. I think kind of a slept-on guy. I'm going to pick me, but I think a lot of it depends on what happens on Thursday night tomorrow with Lamar, and hopefully Dak can sling it around. I know Cleveland's got a good pass defense, but I'll take me in a close one.
Yeah, I'm honestly gonna go with Trevor here. I think you definitely, you said it, you went a little riskier with your team choices here. I mean, obviously neighbors and some of these different Kyle Pitts, some of these riskier picks where you look at Trevor's team and it's volume all day. Everywhere you look, they are the person on their own team who's going to get the most volume. Um, and so just based on ceilings and floors, I think Trevor has a higher floor, whereas you, Cam, are risking it with maybe a high ceiling or
Mhm.
maybe a low floor. You have
Right.
a bigger range of what your team could produce, whereas
Mhm.
Trevor, I think, might get the consistent ball in their hands, making plays for their team. I'm going consistency over riskiness, just in this matchup specifically.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Trevor as well. I think he continues the streak of week one victories uh, in the birthday bowl. Um, I'm not as high, Cam, on your team as I have been in past years based on your
Uh-huh.
draft, although I've made that mistake of underestimating you at my peril in the past. So it wouldn't surprise me to see you in a championship matchup yet again. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Malik Neighbors. I think that's also a tough matchup. Minnesota's got a pretty good defense, even if they have a putrid offense. So yeah, I think there's a couple. I don't love Trevor having the Jets defense against San Francisco, but I think he does enough to win a close one. Final two matchups here. We have Skip, your matchup against Rob. How are you feeling? Thoughts on who gets the dub?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be really interested in these projections because I tend to come out the gate hot with projections. And this year I'm not even scoring what the league median is projected to be. So that's a kick, that's a quick kick to the gut right off the gate. But I'm much more confident in my team than I have been in years past. I said that last year's first pod that I was confident in my team. I mean, my team name last year was This My Year. So maybe I was too confident. But this year I'm very, very happy with how the draft played out and my decision making, come my picks. I'm obviously going to pick myself in this one, because I think I have the best player on their for my team. I think I have the best player on their respective teams. And I'll even confidently say that with Roma Dunze, even though there is DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet, who's solid, and DeAndre Swift as the running back. I think Roma Dunze could be the most talented player in that offense. A lot of mouths to feed, but Caleb Williams is going to have to find a rhythm with one guy right away. I think that could be the rookie to rookie match or combo there. Beyond that, again, I'll say it. I think I have the best player on each of their respective teams. I know I have Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs, but those are the two guys you would want in that offense. Um, Rob's got a great team. I don't want to discount Rob's team here. He's got really good, solid players. I think this could be the highest scoring matchup of the first week here. But I'm obviously going to take myself. I picked Buccaneers defense on purpose because I know they were playing Washington week one. Um, so I've been preparing for week one for quite some time now. I'm ready to come out the gate with 150 points. You can mark me down for that.
I'm gonna go with Rob. I think this is gonna be a narrow victory as well. I think this will be the highest scoring game of the week. I don't I'm not a huge fan. I've had a quarterback and running back on the same real NFL team on my fantasy team in the past, and it's come back to bite me a bit because you tend to either be running the ball a lot or passing the ball a lot. And I don't think Green Bay is going to put up a ton of points against Philly. I actually think that Green Bay Philly game is going to be relatively low scoring. It's in Brazil. Like, we don't know how the atmosphere is going to be, how the teams are going to be. So I could see a little bit of disappointment there. I am worried about the Niners defense. I think the Jets offense could be pretty explosive if Aaron Rodgers can last more than 4 plays this year. But I think I'm going to give the edge to Rob in what will probably be a very exciting matchup.
I'll quickly recount my statement about the best player on each team, Rico Dowdle. Clearly, there are better players in that offense than him, but I'm only singling him out. Everyone else, I feel confident that they could, be their best player. But Rico Dowdle, if he can look anything like Tony Pollard and that receiving back, that get him in space kind of back, I like that. I like that for him there, even though he might not be obviously the most talented player on that offense.
Yeah, I think this game is going to come down to a couple of specific matchups, primarily the tight end game. I want to see what happens. I want to see how Brock Bowers shows out in his first game in that offense. I think we've seen enough from Trey McBride in the last year to know that he's a certified stud against a good Buffalo defense. So I think that's going to be a matchup to watch here. And then the Rico Dowdle, Zach Moss flex matchup as well. I think these guys are two guys in sort of similar situations on sort of similar offenses. Obviously Dowdle has Zeke and Zach Moss has Chase Brown. It really depends on who kind of emerges from those backfields. I think Zach Moss, has had a little bit more success in the last year. I think my bet is whoever wins this matchup of tight end and flex spot one probably wins this game. And I'm gonna lean Trevor, or wait, Rob. I'm gonna lean Rob on this one just because I like his two guys a little bit more than those two guys. But I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a very close game, and I think it's gonna be tied in there with the median as well. So the winner of this game will probably finish 2-0, and I think that the loser of this game finishes 0-2. I think it's going to be really tight, and you guys are both going to be biting your nails, on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm gonna quickly also add that I will be changing my team profile picture because that was my thing last year. So I feel obligated to change it. I do encourage most people in the league to change their names and pictures just for the sake of it being a new year, whatever. I understand if you don't want to, you don't have to. I just encourage it. And then also with my team name, that was just the first one that came to mind. So there will be another attempt at a good pun, maybe not a pun, but just another attempt at a better team name. Just wanted to get one in there before I finalize it. I don't think I'll finish, keep Rome wasn't built in Odunze.
I like that actually a lot.
I'm surprised.
too.
I'm surprised I didn't hear it somewhere. I legitimately was at work, churning my brain away at anything but work, and that popped up, and I was like, you know what? I'll throw it in there, but I might. I'll probably change it.
Our final matchup, we have Eric over Alex in my estimation. We talked about Eric's team. I think Alex could be a bubble playoff team. I like a lot of guys on his team, but similarly, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, I'm not a big fan of if a team is running or passing, you're benefiting, but hard to, benefit in both ways. I think Kelsey is probably due for some regression this year. I think this is maybe the year where, he starts to be more of a low end tight end one. I'm not that high on Eckler in the Washington offense. I think they're going to be throwing a lot, and I think he's at best in a committee backfield. So I'm going to give the edge to Eric here narrowly.
Yeah, Eric's definitely got a younger team, and that tends to be beneficial, even not in dynasty leagues. I'll probably favor Eric as well, just considering I was in the same place as both of them this weekend. I know Eric was not necessarily in the most clear headspace when drafting this team, and that seems to have played to his advantage. I mean, he's got great players up and down. Um, I just like Eric's team. And then you look at the other side, Applebaum. I know he just got a pretty sick promotion and he's moving to a new city. I know he's going to be busier than ever. Um, so I fear the worst for Alex's team throughout the season. But this matchup specifically, I still think Eric's gonna run away with this one.
Yeah, if we were looking at this game last year, I think there wouldn't be much of a decision on who we thought would win that game. Alex, of course, not finishing very strong, and Eric making a little bit of a run in the playoffs. I'm gonna go Eric here too. I think Alex's team is a little bit similar to Josh's in a sense that it's an older team. I just happen to like Josh's roster a little bit better. So it's really hard to bet against Eric in any capacity in fantasy football. So I'm gonna go with Eric here.
Any final thoughts on week 1 and the wrap up?
Should we make a championship pick right now? Should we call out who we think is who the two teams in the championship are gonna be?
Let's do it.
We might as well.
I'm backing myself. I think this is my best squad. I was the happiest with this draft out of the drafts that I've participated in this league. So I'm gonna go with myself over Josh. I think Josh, this is the year he makes a run in the playoffs. I think this is a week 1 matchup that carries itself all the way to the title match.
Wow.
You're predicting that he's going to have a first round bye then because he literally doesn't have a team in week 14.
Well, we know he excels in the regular season, so
it's true. He did it last year.
That's true. Yeah, I'll piggyback Nick being in the championship, and then I'll back myself. I'm really confident in my team. I think I can go the distance. I think I picked with the end game in mind more so than I have in the past. So I am always going to back myself, but I do like where my team is at, considering it's a long season. There will be injuries. I've set myself up to be prepared for those injuries. Even though I don't have a backup quarterback, I only need a backup quarterback for 1 week. I'm definitely going to be playing the defensive waiver wire, which I'm okay with. I'll go you and me, Nick, in the championship.
Yeah, okay. I'm also gonna bet on myself here. But I think that this is the year that Eric finally does it. I think this is the year that, we've been afraid of him for a couple of years now. I think he finally pulls it together. I think, Swift emerges from that backfield. I think CJ Stroud and Laporta are all pros this year. I think Eric beats me in the championship game this year.
Wow, committing seppuku there, huh?
I got into this league.
Yeah. I'd like to tie in real quick. The median is a huge part of this league. That's why we integrated into this league, is to throw a wrench in the mix here. The league median projection is 118. I feel like league scoring is always high right out the gates. Over under league median for this week is going to be that 118.
Okay.
I'll go over. I think we're going to see a lot of offenses. Everyone's healthy right now, running backs included. I think that's a big deal. I think scoring will be up. Defenses might need time to kind of see tape on some of these new offenses and adjust to them. So I think I give offenses generally league wide the benefit of the doubt in week 1. I'll go over 118.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over too. There's a couple of good games this week too. I mean, Detroit, Los Angeles, right? Detroit versus the Rams, Dallas versus Cleveland, of course, Baltimore versus Kansas City. I think that there's going to be a handful. A big Buffalo versus Arizona. I think Arizona's going to have a better offense. I think there's going to be a couple of high scoring games this week, which will lend itself to higher fantasy scores as well. I want to echo Nick saying that like there's going to take some time for defenses to really figure out the schemes of who they're playing against this year. So I think we're going to see the over on the median this week.
Yeah, I was always going to go the over. 120 does sound like a lot of points, but we got 11 starters in our lineups. We've seen 200 points being scored. We've seen 180s, 150s are almost like, cake these
Weekly,
days.
yeah.
So definitely going over the 118. I think even one over 120. And then obviously we have the shine or shade segment. I don't have one off the top of my head, but we have to have one every pod. If there's a shine or shade that you guys have a prompt for, let's see if we can get this going. I'll try to
I'll
think of
go
myself, but
shine or shade. All 12 managers stay engaged all season.
I mean, as I just said, Alex is going to be running an entire golf course. Not by himself, but like it's a step up from what he was doing last year, and he was busy as all hell last year. I fully, as the commissioner and as a coach in this league, I would love for everybody to be engaged throughout the whole season, but we can't. We have a hard time nailing down one time for the draft, let alone the next 18 to 19 weeks. Um, I'll reluctantly shade it for all the wrong reasons, but I will fully encourage every single player to do their best to either set all your lineups now or set them on a specific date every week, Tuesday nights, whatever it is, while you're watching the pod. I fully encourage that for the sake of the league and the integrity of the league.
Yeah, I'm gonna optimistically shine it. Also considering the new fantasy punishment for our league this year, right? Like it definitely, in my mind, encourages engagement, or else you won't be a part of the league next year. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we have a couple suspect people who might not be as engaged. That's kind of why we implemented the rule. I'm gonna shine it. Jason, I'm looking at you. Just make sure you set your lineup. We'll be good, bro.
Yeah, I'll shine it as well. I felt like people were more invested in the draft, even though at times we had to like remind some people or whatever. But I felt like people were more talkative during the draft and more engaged in the draft than necessarily they have been in the past. So that continues throughout the season.
Quickly to touch on what Cam said about the rule. Yes, if you are in last place and you lose the toilet bowl, you are up for relegation. Nick proposed an interesting alternative, which was the 2 minutes of karaoke or something like that, which I think is a good alternative. If you really want to stay in this league, if you're somebody who is active and loves fantasy football and you want to stay in this league, that is an alternative. And I'd also like to propose a second alternative just for the sake of it. We're all a bunch of good friends, good dudes. You have to, if you would like, as opposed to getting relegated, or if you don't like karaoke, you would have to get a rival team's logo tattooed on you. And those are your three options. If you're committed to this league, or if you're fine, whatever, I'm out, you're out. But you can either embarrass yourself for 2 minutes, or
Yeah, just to clarify on the first alternative, it's you have to sing a song trying to sing it as well as you can. Like you have to take it seriously and record yourself singing a song. You can't like make a joke out of it. You have to try your best to sing the song well and record it.
Okay, well, you heard it here first from Simon Cowell / Nick Reiner. You got to be belting it out like you mean it. You got to sing like you want to stay in the league.
That's right.
So, and then obviously on the flip side, we know what we're all playing for. We're playing for Cam's trophy. I hate to call it that, but it's his. If you can't admit the fact that Cam is dominating this league, well, then maybe you should be relegated. And with that, we'll catch you in a week. I will be betting on NFL this year. I think it's a good way to make some money. I think it adds some fun stuff. If we all like betting, maybe we throw some money in this league on different things, but just throwing it out there, I think, I can't wait for this year. The draft went well, even though it took less time than last year. Last year it took 7+ days. This one was under 7. So that's a positive. I just can't wait. but we're definitely over an hour here. So, you know, send your comments in the chat.
Here. Good luck in week 1.
See you guys in the shit, baby.